Nuhash Bhaiya, like this jinn came to my family. I have to tell you about it. You have to make a movie about it. The more of your own stories you tell, the more you can sort of dispel the myths. See a Bangla word travel all over the world has been a beautiful experience. There's this fan base growing in Kolkata where they're watching enough Bangladeshi content, new age of streaming and like cross connection. I think the lines of the borders are disappearing again a little bit because we're discovering each other's works.
Hello everyone, salam, namaste, sat sri akal. Today we have someone all the way over from Bangladesh, and he's a very acclaimed filmmaker in his country. In fact, Nuhash Humayun, who is here for the Cinevesture International Film Festival for the first time in Chandigarh, is the person whose film went to Oscars, the first film to go to, from Bangladesh. Am I right?
Yes, our film Moshari qualified for the Oscars, and I believe we were the first to do that.
So tell me about Moshari, because Moshari is mosquito net in Bangla, right?
Yes, Moshari means mosquito net, but even for our festival circuit, it was a very intentional decision to not give the film an English title. It's not called Moshari the Mosquito Net or Moshari the Net. It's just called Moshari because the idea was to, we see so many films that have foreign titles. It doesn't necessarily need to be translated. I think the shape of the word Moshari is interesting in itself, and I wanted to go to festivals and have people who don't speak Bangla ask me, "Oh, what does it mean?" And figure out the meaning of the word from the film. So that was a beautiful experience, and we've been to so many festivals and screened all over the world. Even we had a screening in Antarctica of our film as well, which is insane. So to see a Bangla word travel all over the world has been a beautiful experience.
When we talk about sitting in India also, we'll say Bangladesh mein cinema kaisa hoga? We are curious about it. How is the cinema there? Because the entire world, news is sold in a very different way, and good news seldom comes this way. So how is the cinema in Bangladesh? Because you've grown up there, you're from there, your father was a very acclaimed filmmaker also. So tell us about your cinema.
Yeah, I have the same curiosity about Indian cinema. I've never really watched much of
That's
Indian
justified.
movies and have had much experience. So it was interesting for me because I think 2 years ago I made this series called Pet Kata Shaw for a platform called Chorki, which is an original streaming platform from Bangladesh. Very low budget, very experimental horror series. It was about the folk tales of Bangladesh. It was about jinns. It was about sort of creatures that eat fish. So a lot of mythologies from the region. And I was surprised because after it came out, I was seeing all these reviews for it online on YouTube. People were reviewing it, but they were pronouncing my name differently, and they were talking in a way I was like, what is this? What is this accent? It just felt different. And I realized they're talking in Bangla, but it was the Kolkata accent. I was like, oh, okay. And I realized that there is this fan base growing in Kolkata where they're watching enough Bangladeshi content to even put up YouTube reviews about it, and even reviewing the trailers, and even reviewing what happens in every episode of every other series. So I find this I think this new age of streaming and cross connection. I think the lines of the borders are disappearing again a little bit because we're discovering each other's work. So it's been beautiful to even come here at Cinevesture and see a lot of people. I met this filmmaker who said, "Oh, I've actually seen your work because we screened it at our university here." So that's been beautiful. But yeah, the Bangladeshi cinema, I think it's really growing the last couple of years. We definitely don't have as big of budgets as on this side. It's much smaller budgets, which leads to much more experimental cinema, much more different kinds of films. So I think that's very fresh. And in fact, we had the first Bangladeshi film in Cannes 2 years ago. We are having Bangladeshi films in festivals all over the world, and I'm having my films travel all over. So it's been a wonderful
But
journey.
it's interesting, Okay, so first, language is also connecting you to Kolkata. Secondly, is your genre. I find it very interesting that horror is your genre, and usually horror films don't get much tawajjo, jise kehte hain na, much importance in a lot of things in India. We'll say at one day, once upon a time we had the Ramsay brothers who really, they gave us horror in a very animated way. So horror was something that we were not scared of. But nowadays I've seen there is a lot of, especially OTT channels, the kind of supernatural stuff, horror stuff. It's phenomenal the way they are intertwining or weaving stories from the political milieu, social milieu, and the religious milieu, and presenting a supernatural around it. Basically, it's about people and their minds and what all is happening. So, how does horror attract you? And you're making very powerful statements through those, through the attempt of that kind of, I would say, Friday Jeepers and Creepers and supernatural effect. So tell me, how did this thought process begin, and that you picked this line of your genre?
Thank you so much for saying that. That's a very good question. It's a very smart way to look at it. I think, look, horror has had a rich history in cinema, and if you look at the greatest filmmakers, they've all sort of dabbled in horror, whether you think of films like Psycho or The Birds, or even filmmakers like Sam Raimi, who got his start in horror.
Shyamalan,
M. Night Shyamalan, definitely. And even horror is also really good for sort of breakout successes like David F. Sandberg, who made a horror short film called Lights Out, which is on YouTube.
Yes.
And then he went from Europe he moved to Hollywood, and he made a feature version of that. So it's also a great way for filmmakers who are not based in Hollywood, not based in a certain part of the world, to sort of travel and have their films travel.
We've seen Israeli and Iraqi.
Yes, definitely.
Apocalypse is all horror.
Yeah, because like in horror, you can do a lot with a low budget. There are a lot of genres that you can't do with low budget. You can do action, or even like a romance. Sometimes you need beautiful settings. You need to be out there. You need a lot of
Very
nice
beautiful
locations, beautiful people.
Horror can get away with
you
that.
can get away with people who aren't necessarily, or locations that aren't like, mountains and clouds and beautiful skies. You can,
need a
in
dingy
fact,
room.
with horror, the lower the budget, the more there's a rawness to the
yes,
genre.
yes.
And I think that, I think what attracted me to horror, because I've done a lot of genres throughout my career. I've worked in drama, and I've had a film, Sincerely Yours, Dhaka, which is much more comedy drama. It's on Netflix. It premiered at Busan. So I've had other films play really well. But what's interesting about horror, I think, is that there's some people who love it, and there are other people who hate it, and I think I love that. I think people have a very strong reaction to horror. People will either be like, oh, I love horror, or ew, horror, I don't think that's cinema, that's not real art. And I love that sort of, it's always a very strong reaction. I think that's really interesting, because when I was making Moshari or making Pet Karasha or Foreigners Only, which I made for Hulu, people were like, oh, you're doing horror? I don't know, it's not real. It's not, and I think even that was empowering in a way, because I'm like, you know what? Sure, it's trashy. I don't have to care. I can just make whatever I want. So it helped me break the language and kind of do things in my own way. And again, say statements about society in a way that's not very kind of forced.
That, yes.
But it's not kind of in a way that's like, oh, you're force feeding a message to the audience. You're through the scares and through the entertainment, maybe you can say something about the world we're living in.
So very interesting, because Moshari, the mosquito net, is about how women, how people realize that the mosquito nets keep the vampires away. And you've connected it somehow with the Parda system, how women are also kept in the, they're kept under veils, and how we are not letting, I think somewhere it was written that you're also talking about women and how they are subdued and they're into submission of some kind. And that net is that safe space, and this child wants to come out of that net. Similarly, with your other horror anthologies, even Foreigners Only, you're looking at from an outsider's perspective. So it's very interesting the way you are connecting a message. So we come to that, is that horror is one thing, and connecting it to a message. So do you think that real life is like horror only? Or what women or children face?
I was never really thinking about veils that particularly, but I think I found it very fascinating to travel all over the world with Moshari. When we screened it in Bangladesh for the first time, people were saying, oh, this is about how women are treated in society. And even a lot of the reviews that came out of India and Bangladesh, they were talking about, oh, this is about women and how they're treated in society. When we screened it at South Korea, and we had a beautiful Q&A, and someone from the audience who was Korean, this film student was Korean, asked if the monster represents the colonial horrors of the British Empire. Are these the white people? Are these the colonizers who've come back to suck our blood from society? So I found that very fascinating, that wherever I go in the world, they're finding a different interpretation. And I think that's what's powerful about a monster, about a shadow, about darkness. Because in horror, you're not showing the darkness, you're not showing what it is necessarily. It's darkness, it's a monster. And you as the audience, to you, the monster is what's been the monster in your life, right? Their history, their society. So that interpretation is saying a lot about that person, that culture, what they're going through, what they're struggling with. And I found that very interesting, because when I was writing the film, honestly, I was a teenager when I came up with the concept. I was just thinking this would be kind of cool and kind
Yeah.
of scary. I wasn't, sure, I wanted there to be some substance and a message, but I was honestly just a kid trying to get some of a budget together to just make
make your
something. You know what I mean? It's so hard to think about so much, but I think there's room for both kinds of horror. The kind of fun horror that doesn't really have much to say, but it's just kind of the Zombieland kind of fun stuff like that. That's great. But it's also great when there's something human about it. But I think when we're making horror, South Asians, it's in our blood. We
Yes.
have so many folk tales and so many
Yes.
stories of horror. So I think when we're making it, it should have something human to say. So that's just how I feel.
Are you open, like as a filmmaker, do you like these interpretations, or do you like to explain your film, or you just make it and you're like, it's artwork, see it the way you want to see it? Are you open to criticism? Are you open to interpretation? Do you like explaining your film, your work, or you want to move on to the next?
I like explaining the process behind it, or it's funny. Today we screened Moshari at the festival, Cinevesture, and someone was asking about this imagery because there's this one of the opening shot was this cow that was like rotting, this dead cow, and there was a lot of talk in the film about religion, and they were asking, "Oh, are you saying something very pointed about the religions we have and what it means?" And I said that honestly, we went for a location recce to look for a right location, and we saw this animal that was dying, and we were like, "Can we just take us a couple of shots of this because it would be a very powerful image with the opening image. It would be very scary." So sometimes the meaning is for the audience to create, but all I can say is I'm just trying to like find images and tell my story, and I think it's beautiful when people, because I think there needs to be enough layers in the story for people to come up with their own interpretation. So I find that process very fascinating.
Has horror ever horrified you? Like, do you get scared of ghosts and all? What is your horror story that you want to tell? And you get really scared, because I love watching horror, but I can't sleep at night then.
Yeah, it's funny because given the last couple of years where my work has kind of gotten a lot of attention, and whether it's I'm in LA or a festival, some people come up and recognize me a little bit, and I'll have all these messages on my kind of Instagram, and if you go through the messages, it's people sending me their horror stories. It's people going like, "Nuhash Bhaiya, like this jinn came to my family. I have to tell you about it. You have to make a movie about it." So just random people from all over, just the South Asian diaspora all over the world, just sending me their like South Asian horror stories. Like, "You have to make this. This is your next film." Like. And I think that's really fun, but it does creep me out a little bit. I think I get scared very easily,
Yeah.
which is why I like making it myself.
And what is the next film that you're going to do?
Well, there are multiple films that I'm developing right now. Like there are 2 films that I'm doing on the LA side and the Hollywood side of things with some studios that I can't talk about in too much detail now. But also in Bangladesh, I'm doing a second season of Pet Kata Shah as well. So yeah, having fun doing projects on both sides of the world.
So, is it fun to be in Bangladesh? Let's just dispel some rumors and that it's a third world country and Bangladesh is safe, unsafe. Tell me about Bangladesh.
It's great. I mean, it's like
Like there are misconceptions about India also. So.
yeah, I think people call South Asia, India, Bangladesh like third world countries, and there is this perception in the media because a lot of the negative stuff is the stuff that goes out, right? Like but I think that media is a powerful tool for us to take charge of, right? Because it's soft power, right? The power to tell your own stories. So the more of your own stories you tell, the more you can sort of dispel the myths, and we can like sit and complain about other people and how they're representing you or they're judging you, but I think the better thing to do is just tell our stories ourselves and like take ownership of it. That's all we can do. And if people want to judge us or have those names, we didn't come up with the name Third World. We didn't name ourselves as South Asians. We didn't.
Yeah,
give
quite
ourselves
advanced.
that name. Like they gave that name to us,
Yes.
right? So it's like we gotta stop even like using those terms and just
I
like.
think we have to have some more confidence in our own selves.
Yeah, a little bit.
And Bangladesh has independent cinema and film festivals. All this is thriving with the youth.
Yeah, definitely. There's Bangladeshi streaming is really popular. A Bangladeshi film, Hawa, last year did really well and actually opened in India, which usually doesn't happen, where Bangladeshi films usually have to have Indian producers to open in India.
I think Chunky Pandey was a huge hit in Bangladesh. And Mithun Chakrabarti. These were the actors who've acted in Bangla films.
Right.
Chunky Pandey and Mithun Chakrabarti.
Right, yeah. Could be, yeah.
No, it's fun,
Yeah.
and I am hoping to get more films, more stories from you, and more collaborations this side. And I hope you come this side to shoot a horror film, maybe some folk tales from Punjab.
Yeah, it would be fun.
It would be fun. We'll share some.
Yes, sounds
All right. On that note, thank you so much, Nuhash, for being on Just Talking.
Yeah.
And till then, keep watching, like, and subscribe.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.